So over the last year or two, I've been doing most of my building with Claude Code. I find it the most reliable, the most stable, in many respects, the most intelligent of all of the AI coding platforms. But the problem with Claude Code is it's very expensive. So if you're going to be using Claude Code a lot, you're going to be paying something in the region of $200, £150 per month to use it, which for many people is really prohibitive. But there is a new tool available, and I want to share it with you in this lesson. So this is free. I'm giving this away for free, just as an introduction to a different approach to using AI to code. So I'm going to be using a combination of Ollama. So I'll be using an open source model from Ollama, and I'll be combining it with OpenCode, which is a pretty new AI coding, agentic coding platform. Very simple to use. You literally just put your prompt into the interface, very similar to ChatGPT or Gemini, and it will do the coding in the background. There are some differences with Claude Code, but they're not major. So let's get started. First thing I want you to grab from the link below is the GitHub repository. For those of you who don't know what GitHub is, it's a place where you store files, code. You will be storing your code once you've finished creating your platform in GitHub, and then moving forward, if you're doing a lot of development, you'll store your code in GitHub. I haven't stored code here. I've literally just stored some instructions. So you can see here, look, there's a link to the packages. I'll talk through those first, what you're going to need to download before we get started. There's a couple of others. There's an instruction which we'll come on to in a moment. The first thing you're going to give AI to start the planning process. And there's also a prompt here, which you can use, you don't have to, but if you want to really get involved, quite a lot of depth, then there's a very long, over 10,000 lines, which basically sets up an agentic planning framework. But again, we may not use that for this particular course because, it may be slightly over-involved, but it's there if you want to use it. Okay, so make sure that you have access to this and you've opened it up because you'll be using it a bit later. Now, okay. In terms of packages that you need to download, just a few. If you're a Mac user, make sure you have Homebrew. So Homebrew just sits in the background. It will help to download packages for you. It's kind of an interface. Well, you can see here, look, the missing package manager for Mac OS or Linux. Okay, so if you're a Mac or Linux user, then make sure you've downloaded Homebrew. How do you do it? You just copy this link here, this command, just copy it there, look. Go into your terminal and paste it in. That's it. Again, you can see here, look, I'm in my system folder. So right at the top, because you want it across your entire system, not just in a project. You're not going to put this into a single project. This goes at the system level because you're going to be using it across your projects. And then the next one that you're going to need is Node. And this is for Mac and PC. Makes no difference. Node.js.org. And just make sure you can see LTS should auto select this. That means long-term support, the most stable version. And then make sure that's your operating system. NVM, NPM's correct. Hit download. Again, just unzip it so that it's in your system because you're going to have, these are just going to work in the background. Node and Homebrew, you don't really even know they're there. But if they're not there, what we're about to do won't work. Okay, so make sure you downloaded them. Okay, number one, number two, number three, you need to download Ollama. Okay, so ollama.com, hit download, again, just unzip it. Looks like this, so you can see the little icon here at the top. So the actual chatbot platform just looks like this. Is quite cute, actually. It's actually really nice because you can basically interact with open source models, including models that you can download onto your device. Now, unless you've got a very large processor, CPU, and lots of RAM or VRAM on your device, then they're going to be small models, maybe 8 GB models, certainly no more than that. But if you're going into the really large models, the ones that have, 150, 100, 200 billion parameters, then you're going to need a lot of VRAM. So it's likely that you're going to be using cloud models, which is what we're going to be using for this project. We're not going to be downloading anything onto our device. So don't worry if you've got a fairly, not very much memory, because we're actually going to be using this GLM 4.7 Cloud, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So make sure you've downloaded Ollama. Fourth one is OpenCode. Okay, so just make sure you've downloaded OpenCode. Just download the desktop version, and it's pretty straightforward how you can use it. We'll come on to that in a moment. So that's basically all you need. So you're going to need Homebrew for your Mac, Node for everyone, Ollama, and OpenCode. Make sure they're downloaded, make sure they're unzipped, and then you'll be good to go. Okay, so the reason I wanted to do this video is I received this email which shows a really simple way to set everything up using Ollama. And it's literally just a couple of commands. So remember, you have to have had downloaded Ollama onto your device, and it has to be working. You saw it there, otherwise this won't work. Literally do this, look. You grab Ollama Launch, go into your terminal, paste in Ollama Launch, and then it offers you options as to which IDE or integrated development environment you want to use. And we're going to use OpenCode. Now, if you're a Claude Code user, you can actually just open it up inside of Claude Code. And so in many respects, you can skip this next part. But if you're not and you want to use it inside a new development environment that you haven't used before because you're wanting to do this, slightly more cost effectively, then I would suggest using OpenCode. So I'm just going to hit OpenCode there, look, and it's going to open up OpenCode, and you can see it there, okay? If you haven't downloaded OpenCode, then you won't see this. Okay, so just make sure that you have actually downloaded OpenCode. And the second thing that we need to do, I can just terminate this because we're not going to do it inside of the terminal like this. So I'll just hit terminate. I'm just going to check. You can see that it's working. The second thing that we need to do, again, is just pull the right model. In other words, we're going to kind of basically make the link between our device and the Ollama cloud model, this one. So I'm going to use GLM 4.7. It's a great model. It's really good reviews. It's right at the top in terms of benchmarking. It's pretty well on a par with Claude 4.5 Sonnet, which is the main tool I use for coding. So it really is. It's on a par. And you'll see it's pretty impressive. So I'm just going to grab this prompt here. Look. Okay, go back into my terminal. I need to pull that down. Okay, so I need to pull that cloud model and make the connection. We're not actually pulling it onto our device, because don't worry, this is a big model. It's no way, unless you've got a very, very large CPU and a lot of VRAM on your device, you're never going to download this. But we're just making the link with the cloud version. So yeah, I mean, it's instant for me because I'd already downloaded it, but you'll actually see this go from 0 to 100%. And then it will say success. So now basically what we've got our package managers, we've got, Homebrew and Node. We've got our Ollama. We've downloaded OpenCode onto our device. And we've also got that GLM 4.7. That is literally it. The only other thing that you're going to want to consider, okay, and I've done this just for this lesson. I may continue. I'll just wait and see how I get on. You will get a certain amount of use for free. You'll be able to have a play with the GLM 4.7 model without paying. But if you're going to start coding properly, then you're going to need to pay. But it really is not expensive. When I said that Claude Code is $200 a month, you're probably, for the GLM model, will need the Pro at $20 a month. The reason is that the GLM is much, much cheaper. I mean, it's orders of magnitude cheaper than Claude Code. So the Claude model is $5 per million tokens input, $25 per million tokens output. GLM is, I think, 40 cents per million dollars input, and I think it's $1.50 million output. What does that mean? Well, it means that it is a lot cheaper. So you get a lot more use. So you should find, for what we're going to be doing, this will be enough. But even if you are absolutely hammering it, really hammering it, you're still going to be paying half the amount of Claude Code, and you will easily get as much, probably more use from that than you will from Claude Code. Again, I'm on the fence. I'll just see how I get on, because I've been quite impressed with this GLM model so far, and I think you will be too. So just be aware, you'll get the free version, you'll be able to do this, but you may find you hit up against rate limits. Once you maybe are halfway into the project, you'll have to come back in a few hours. It's up to you as to whether you decide to go for it now and pay $20 for this project, or you just stay for free. Leave that one with you. Okay, so we've got everything ready. So what do we do now? Well, basically, we open up. Let me just start a new one here. Look, you open up OpenCode, and it will look like this. Okay. You're going to need to open a project. So what do you need? Just a folder. You literally just need a folder. So let me just set that up now. So here we go. I have just created this Quizcraft demo. It's just inside of a Dropbox. I use Dropbox mainly because I want to keep the code on my local device, but also in the cloud. So you can see there, it looks completely empty. And I just kind of open it up, just drag it in to OpenCode. So Quizcraft demo. So make sure you can see that at the top. And then you're in the right place. Okay. And then what you're going to do, you're not going to see this GLM 4.7 cloud. You'll see this big pickle. It will look like this when you first open it up. Just go down here and just select the Ollama. If you don't see this, it's because you haven't followed those previous steps. And if you think, I have, quit out of OpenCode and reopen, and you should see it, because often you need to restart. If you'd actually opened up OpenCode and then downloaded the 4.7 model, it probably won't show. Just make sure you quit and restart. So I'm just going to click it there. And so that's it. So that's what we're going to do. So if you're in this place, you've got all this sorted, then you're in a really good spot. Now, you can leave this open for now, and I'll show you how you can kind of use this a bit later, but you can also turn it off. You can just toggle that on. There's also a terminal down here, look, which you may or may not need a bit later on. See that, but that's it. It's very, very simple. It's very minimal. I'll turn it off for now because actually we're just going to be using the chat interface, and that really is it. Kind of looks like ChatGPT in a way. You've got your projects down here on the left. You've got your chat interface in the middle. You can add images. So we're going to pause that for there, because actually what I want to do is not use up loads of tokens planning inside of here. Particularly if you've got the free version, you want to just be coding inside of here. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm actually going to go over to Google AI Studio. Now you can do this inside of ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Claude, doesn't really matter. But I'm using Google AI Studio because it's free. Just go to aistudio.google.com or ai.dev. If you put this in as well, look, also works. Same thing. Cool, really cool web address. Well done, Google, for grabbing that one. And this is how it looks. It's great. I love this tool. I use this all the time. It's completely free. If you haven't used it before, then you are in for a treat, because it is basically got the most powerful AI model here. Consistently comes out on top with benchmarking for free, Gemini 3 Pro. So this is the one you pay, $20 a month inside of Google for, but you get it for free here. So you can just click on there, look, just choose Gemini 3 Pro. It'll probably default initially to this one. Just change it for this one. It doesn't really matter. They're both very good, but this one's better. And there's a prompt. Now the prompt, again, you'll find this inside of the GitHub repo. So just go and grab it. You don't have to use this exactly, by the way. You can completely ignore this and do your own thing. Okay, I'm just using this because it's actually quite cool. I'm really looking forward to building it, actually. So this is what we're going to be building over the course of this little mini free course. Okay, so I'm saying here, act as my agile software team to build Quizcraft, a frictionless web tool for teachers to generate and share AI-powered quizzes. Agile is a process. It's a development and planning process that software engineers have used for a long time. AI knows it really well, which is why I use it. We're using Next.js, Tailwind, and ShadCN. Okay, Next.js is the language that we'll be programming in. Tailwind is the style library. ShadCN is the component library, so things like buttons and cards and drop-down menus and all that kind of stuff. So basically, it's what we're saying is just import libraries in, because then you don't have to build your own cards and define your own buttons. It will just do it for you. It's really, really great. The critical constraint is a zero backend architecture. This is quite cool. I'm really looking forward. I've never done this before, so I'm looking forward to building this. The app must never store data on a server. How does it store data? I hear you cry. Well, teachers will generate quizzes using their own OpenRouter API key. We'll come on to that later. And again, I'm going to use the same GLM 4.7 model inside of OpenRouter, which is just a website where you can kind of grab AI. Pretty cheap. And the app must compress the resulting quiz JSON directly into a shareable URL hash, so students can open the link and play the quiz entirely client-side. What on earth does that mean? Well, what it means is all of the data that sits on the page, so the quiz, questions, answers, feedback, actually goes into the URL. And that's it. And so it's like the back end is your URL. So when you open up the page, it populates everything from the URL hash into the page. Now, I've seen War and Peace stored as a URL hash. You can store pretty well an infinite amount of information inside the URL. Super clever. We're not doing anything confidential with this. We're not doing anything, no PII, nothing school sensitive. This is just a quiz, so it works really well. Would I suggest you storing confidential information in a URL hash? No. But for this, it's actually really cool. So it's going to be quite fun to do. So the quiz will then be assessed using an OpenRouter model. I've suggested a super cheap open source GPT 20 billion parameter model. Again, you can choose your own. It's up to you. So the LLM API must be stored inside Versal environment variables. What that means is your API, which is like your key to your AI, which you're going to be paying for, you're not going to store it in your code base, because then people can access it and they can use your, they can use your AI that you're paying for. So API keys, so important that you keep them secure. Really, really important that you keep them secure. So we're not going to put them anywhere near our code base. Please break this down into epics and stories, starting with the Node database foundation. An epic is like a chapter in a book when it comes to planning. Imagine that the whole site planning process is a book. Epics are the chapters. Stories are like the sections inside of a chapter. So basically what we do is we break down our build into chunks. This for me has been the biggest unlock, and it's what actually has enabled me to scale my development business. And now I'm working with clients across the world. And it's because I am incredibly rigorous about this process. In fact, I spend more time on this than I do on the coding. In this particular course, I'm not going to go into huge depth about my planning process, but you will find in the more advanced courses on the site, you'll find a lot more detail, but this will get you started. So I'm literally going to copy this prompt. Again, you can find this inside of the GitHub repository or repo inside of Google AI Studio, and I just paste that in. That's it. Okay, so there we go. So as usual with AI, slightly obsequious, fascinating architectural challenge, explains the rationale, explains the high-level architecture. And then here we are. So chapter 1, section 1, section 2, chapter 2, blah, blah, blah. Okay, you get the idea. Now what we're going to do is we're going to store this in our folder. So the folder that we've actually opened inside of OpenCode. Okay, we're going to store it inside of this same Quizcraft demo folder. Okay, so this is how we do it. I'm going to use TextEdit. You don't have to do whatever you want, but I find A's TextEdit works quite well. So let me just find it here. Look, Quizcraft demo. There we go. So I've just opened up inside of TextEdit. I've opened up new document. So I'm just going to grab that in a moment, but let me just grab the code first. So I just hit the top 3 here, look, and I'm going to copy as markdown. Going to go into my folder inside of TextEdit and new document and paste that in. Okay, so there we go. So now I've just pasted it in. Now I can get rid of all of this obsequious bump at the beginning and probably stuff at the end. There we go, get rid of that. Great stuff. There we go. So you can see there, look, it's given here, look, technical risks. Browsers generally support URLs up to 2,000 to 5,000 characters. LS string is efficient, but a 50-question quiz might break this. Again, I'm going to leave that in there because actually I want the AI to read the technical risks and mitigation strategies when it actually comes to plans. So we'll keep that in, but I've got rid of the bump at the beginning, at the end. And then I just save it, save as. I'm going to save it as Markdown. So I'm going to say epics and stories. And I'll change the TXT to Markdown MD. There we go, because it just holds the formatting then, and it can read the formatting, bold and bullet points and what have you, and then just hit save. Okay, so there we go. So now it's saved as a Markdown file, epics and stories. So I go now back into OpenCode. And we're actually going to begin by explaining what we want it to do. So I want you to read Epics and Stories MD file and complete Epic 1 stories. And what I'm actually going to ask it to do is work chapter by chapter. Now, I will often, in a long build, particularly where the sections are quite much more detailed, I will actually often ask it to go story by story. But this is quite a short project. It's not a huge amount of coding to be done. I'm actually going to ask it to just do one chapter at a time rather than one section at a time. So I want you to read the Epics and Stories MD file and complete Epic 1 stories. Ensure the project is built inside this root directory. This is my root directory. I want it built inside of this. So I need to specify that. So you can see how fast it is. So one of the things I really like about this GLM 4.7 model, it's blazing fast. It's so much faster than Claude. I like this as well. Look, this is nice with OpenCode. It gives me a really clearly articulated to-do list. All of us OCD people. There we are. So now it's just going, this is thinking. So here, look, in italics, this is the model thinking. There we are. This is it acting. So this is a shell command. You can even expand it there. Look, so you can see this is what it's done. This has created this command inside of the terminal. And then it's writing various files. So there you go. That took about 4 or 5 minutes in total to do the first 2 stories. And it went through quite a few checks. There are a few problems. It ran some checks and there were some errors, so I had to redo it. But it literally it was just blinding fast. I'm really impressed with how fast this is actually. So that's now. Okay, so how do you check? Again, if you've done this before, then you can skip this bit. But basically, we're going to run what we call the development server. So we're going to get it set up on our local machine, so we can see it in the web browser on our local machine. We use something called localhost. Localhost is literally hosting the site locally on your device. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm now going to say, now you won't have to do this initially, but I would always suggest you do this moving forward. Now, the reason I've said kill any running dev servers is what will happen, particularly if you're working with multiple projects like I am, and you're often just running multiple servers. It's quite easy for your computer memory to get overloaded if you've got too many servers running. Now, if you need to have more than one server, a couple is fine, but I've got a pretty powerful MacBook Pro, and even I find after when 2 or 3 servers are running, my computer really slows down. So what I will always do is say just kill any servers that are running and then restart. And localhost 3000 is the default localhost. There you go. You can see that, look, on localhost 3000. So we can see then it has worked. Quizcraft, create a quiz. There you go. So it won't show anything because obviously there's nothing to show right now. But we can see here localhost 3000 and there's our home page. So we know that Epic 1 is complete. So now what we can do is we can go into Epic 2 and we can just see it here. What we're going to do now, so this is Epic 2 teacher flow. It's going to be able to put an open router API key in, and then we're going to be able to generate the quiz. Okay, so that's sort of the next. We've got 3 stories, and then generate a link to share the URL, including the entire quiz data. Now, we are going to do security checks at the end, by the way, so don't worry thinking, oh, I'm really nervous. it's fine. There is a process that we'll go through at the end. But for now, everything's on our laptop. We've not pushed anything online. We're doing everything kind of locally. So don't worry too much. You can play around, build, make mistakes, but always we'll run a check before we actually deploy our code. Okay, so let's just go back in here, look, back into OpenCode. There we go. I'm going to say now, let's move on to building all of Epic 2 stories to completion. Then I'm going to say, then at the end, run build. Run build means it's like the process to make sure it's ready to be deployed. So it's like a check process that we need to go through. So there we go. Epic 2 is complete. API management, quiz generation, shared link generation. We've got home page, create page, and a quiz player. Again, let's see how it works. As before, kill the server on 3000 and restart. You will always need to restart if you've run a build, because it will just it will cause internal server errors. So you just literally say kill the server and restart, and it will do that. Okay, let's just check. Now you can see there, look, internal server error. I would always do a hard refresh that clears the cache. To do that, Command Shift R or Control Shift R if it's a PC, Command Shift R, refresh the page. Okay, so let's see if it's worked. If it hasn't, we'll just debug. Okay, so enter your OpenRouter API key. Okay, this is what we're going to do now. Go to OpenRouter. Okay. OpenRouter.ai. Get API key. So you need to sign in, log in, just log in with GitHub, and or Google, doesn't matter. Just sign in, authenticate, get API key, create API key. I'm going to mask this so you won't be able to see this, but I'm just going to call it quizcraft. And reset, no expiration, fine. You can, if you just want to test it for a while and know that it's not going to persist, you can. But for this, as we're just kind of playing, I'm going to just say no expiration, create, copy, paste that in there, save the key. Okay, API key saved. Okay, so now sitting behind my code base here is my API key. Now we are going to check before we deploy, just to make sure that API key is safe, that there's no way anyone could get hold of it. And if there is, what we will do is we'll move everything into Versal, both from my side, but also the student side. But again, we'll go with it for now. Okay, so the topic, photosynthesis. So I'm just going to say, the role of the witches in Macbeth. Difficulty, I'm going to say advanced, 5 questions, that's fine. Okay, so you can see here, look, GLM 4.7 is not a valid model. Can you see down there, look? So we just need to go and check to make sure it's got the correct model name. So go into here, okay? And go into here and you're going to click on models. I'll just put GLM. And can you see there, look, 4.7, that's the one we're going to use. And we grab this. Can you see there? Look, it's just got the wrong model name. This is the name of the model. So tap on that, go back into, this is the name of the model we will use. Please change. There you go. So now we go back in. And again, I would always do a hard refresh of the page, Command Shift R, just to clear the cache. Role of the witches in Macbeth. Go for advanced. 5 questions, generate quiz. Let's see if it's worked this time. Now, it's taken quite a long time to generate the quiz. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to let that run. And this is one of the reasons why you want the AI to start the development server, because it can see the logs. So I'm going to say this, quiz is taking a long time. Check the logs. Now that's interesting, actually. It says it can't see the logs, but it actually can. So I'm going to say you started the dev server. So you should be able to see the development logs. Again, I wanted to show you this live because I'm doing this for the first time using this. And it's quite interesting to see. So actually, and I'll know in future, it needs to be able to start the development server in the foreground. Claude always does that, just does it without. So, but actually, obviously for this particular model, inside of OpenCode, I need to specify because you want the AI to be able to see the logs. What I mean is, here in the terminal, if I was to go npm run dev, you'll see lots and lots of things like details appearing about what's all the background processes. But obviously, because it's running, AI is running, I don't see anything here. So we want to make sure that AI in future can actually see what it's doing. It's really important. If you're for debugging, it's critically important AI can actually see. Okay, so it's now just doing it. It's now monitoring it. Okay, so now it is, now it's put some extra logging in just to see what the error might be. So let's just go back in here, look. And it has actually worked. There we go. It just took a long time. Just took a long time. So there we go. So it's given me some 5 questions. Basic formatting, but you can always, those sorts of superficial things quite easy to fix. It's the background stuff that you want. So it's basically given me those. So we see that's worked. Okay, we can see that AI has created the quiz. It was a bit slow. We'll do it again once we've done the next. We've coded the next epic, the final epic, which is the sharing one. And then if it's still slow, we'll go back and we'll debug. But we can see here, look, it's created a quiz. And it's given us, you can see where the right answer is. We can see what the explanation is. So that's now done. So let's now go back to OpenCode. It is now working. Let's now focus on completing all of Epic 3 stories. And I'll say to completion. Tautology, completing all of Epic 3 stories to completion. English teacher, there we are. I would say it's been a long day, but it's still quite early. So there we go. So it's just read them through, look. Read the 3 stories, and now it's going to implement them. Let's see how long it takes. So far, I'm about, well, you'll see. I mean, in terms of build time, about 30 minutes. Okay, there we go. So it's created this env example, which we're going to need for the Open Router System Key Environment Variable needed for the server-side grading API. Again, we can sort that in a moment, but it's basically done what it needed to do. So what we can do now, if we just go into the code base, we need to actually going to find this file here. We can do that in a moment, but let's just see whether the actual interface has actually worked. So again, kill the dev server and restart on 3000. Ensure in the foreground so you can monitor the logs. Okay, so we've set it up and restarted on 3000 so we can check. So Command Shift R to refresh the page. Okay, so we can see here, look, it isn't working, so let's just go back. Restart the dev server. Often when you're making changes, it will often just need to be restarted. You'll get used to this. One small thing just to add, I've also just added this command in to OpenCode so that we can test this in dev. Ensure we have an env local as well as a .env.example. You can actually see here, look, you know, it has given me the .env.example slightly further up here. Where is it? Somewhere up here, look. .env.example. but we also need env local. What's the difference? Okay, well, env example is basically shows you how to set up a .env.local file. This is critically important. Okay, this file is so important because this will define your local environment variables. In other words, your local links to other services. In our case, it's only going to be OpenRouter for our API key for our AI, but it might be your backend. It could be, there are a bunch of different things, authentication, but for us, it's just going to be one thing. So I've just asked you to set up a file. You can just create one yourself in your file browser, literally just create a text file and just call it .env.local. But I've asked it to create that. So just make sure you've got that also set up, because in a moment we're actually going to add our OpenAI API key so our students have access to AI for it to generate a response. Okay, there we go. So let's see if it's worked. Create a quiz. So we've got our API already set. So I'm going to say, let's say the solar system, and let's have it intermediate number of questions. Let's stick with 5 just to keep it simple. Let's see how fast it generates the quiz now. And it's working. Again, I think it's just slow. It may be the model. It may be being overloaded at the back end. You might want to try a different model, but we can see that it's actually working. So that's actually not so bad. Okay, so now we've got our quiz. We've seen that before. Now let's see if the sharing feature works. Hit share quiz. Quiz link is copied to the clipboard. I'm going to just open up an incognito window so we know we're not logged in with anything. So there's the share link. That's the hash. Okay, so what I was saying at the beginning, all of this stuff is the hash. This is what should populate the quiz with the questions. Okay, so it hasn't actually, you can see here, look, can't be reached. Oh, I think I probably need to restart it again. 1 second. There we go. Again, this will just become what you just normally do. You're just debugging. This is the boring part, I'm not going to lie. This is where you think, oh, if only I could go into the back end and do the code myself. But it'll be fast. But again, whether you're manually coding this or AI is doing it, stuff breaks, stuff doesn't work. You have to go in and fix it. Just so happens that AI is going to do it for us. Let's just see. So here, look, let's just restart the localhost student version. There we go. So we've got this. So this hash has pulled down the text into here. Okay, so let's see. Which 2 planets in our solar system are classified as ice giants? Let's give you units and submit answer. Grading service under, oh, we need to put the API key in. So let's just go back in here. Go back into the, here, look, and we need an API key. So I grab the API key. You're going to need to grab, my suggestion would be use the same, you don't have to, but use the same API key for both. I'm not going to be able to because I didn't save the API key. I just put it straight into the code base. So I'm going to just grab another API key here, look. Just go to OpenRouter, get API key, create API key, and I'll just say quiz craft student, create, copy. Now what I do is this, look. I need to go into here. I need to go into my folder. Now there are other ways to do this, and I tend to use an integrated development environment which has a file browser. But for this project, I'm just literally going to use the file browser here, just inside of your, well, you can see, inside of your normal file browser, Mac or Windows. So I'm inside my Quizcraft demo. I need to find the .env.local file. So this is the file that will have all of your environment variables. In other words, your links to third-party packages, external packages. In this case, it's the OpenRouter AI. So you need to put your API key. You can't see it. It doesn't exist. Well, it does. It's a hidden file. Now, you'll need, if you're a Windows user, you'll just need to search for show hidden files in Windows, and it will show you. It's a bit more long-winded. In a Mac, it's quite easy. I just go Shift, Command, full stop. There we go. So you can see it there, look. Okay, Shift Command full stop, Shift Command full stop, Shift Command full stop shows hidden files. So I'm just literally going to right click on here, open with text edit. And there it is. And I'm going to put my API key in. I'm going to mask it so you can't see it. Just there, look. Delete that. And you put it into inverted commas. Okay, put it inside of inverted commas when you're doing it inside of your local file. Hit save. Okay, so now my link to open routers are also available for students, but it almost certainly will have got the model name wrong. Remember, I asked for the GPT-OS one just because it's super cheap. It's almost free. This one here, look. I mean, there is a free version. You can try the free ones. You just won't get much use. I mean, it'll go backwards and forwards a few times, then it will stop working. So this one, look, it is 2 cents per million input and 10 cents. I mean, it's virtually free. So I'm just going to select this. I'm going to go into OpenCode. I'm going to say, ensure you have the correct student grading model name. Yeah, you see, look, it's actually just picked some random Hugging Face open model. Not sure why. Well, we did actually specify from the start. This will happen. AI just kind of gets forgetful. It often is because of context window. It will exhaust its context window. It will have forgotten what you've done before, which is why we have our document with our epics and our stories. It becomes our context. It's called context engineering. It's super critical with coding. You need context. I've not been as detailed in this course because it's such a short project that we're doing here. But normally I would have a much, much more detail, and I would ask it to constantly be referring back to the context so it remembers, because as you see here, it actually forgot. There we are. So it's now changed the model. So now if we go back into the student page, let's just find that student page again. You see it's restarted here, look. So let's see if it's worked. So now we've got the AI to do the grading in the background. There we go. So now it's given me that, look, and retry the quiz home. So it's worked. It's worked, but then what do? There's no way of saving it. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it to have a save button at the bottom here, which will print it as a I want to see which ones I got the answer I gave and whether it's incorrect, which it hasn't done. So I'll do that. But also I want a little print quiz, so it prints it as a static PDF. So let's just go back into OpenRouter, this OpenCode. This is the part I love, because you just add plays. So I quite like this, and maybe we can add that. Okay, let's make some additions. First of all, when the user has completed the quiz, ensure it shows the questions they got incorrect as well as the correct question, the correct answers. Okay. Also, let's have a save button at the bottom, which downloads the completed quiz with all user information as a static PDF. Oh, there you go. Interesting. Look, the OpenAOS 20 model is slower than some alternatives. You could consider using faster models. Yeah, this is a good one, actually. You could try this one. That's fast. This one's also fast. You just try it. You literally can go in here. Look, as I said, you can go into OpenRouter. This is the great thing about OpenRouter, actually. Hit models, and you've just got a bunch of them. You can try loads. Look, you can try loads. You could try this one. You could have a play around with, like an amazing one like this. This is a new one. I haven't played with this yet. This is supposed to be really, really impressive. 2.5, Kimi 2.5. But you've got a bunch of free ones as well. You can literally just grab a free one and just play. So that's the nice thing about using models like this. It's actually really, really cool to be able to play with different models and just see what's fastest, what's the most accurate, what's the most useful. I've just picked 2 at random in a way. You can try others. Okay, good. So again, because we ran the build, we made some changes. We need to restart the dev server, otherwise it won't work. Okay, so there we go. So it's restarted. And we will just go through again. If I've kept the GPT-OS model, so it is going to be a bit slow. So there we have it. So I actually changed and asked it to save as an HTML rather than as a PDF. Because when I tried to get it to do it as a PDF, it just really messed up, which has happened to me before. It's also happened with Claude Code. So this is not necessarily a GLM problem. It's just it sometimes struggles to sort of print PDFs of web pages. So you can see there, look, it's basically given me the questions that I got right, questions to review, little performance summary, and that's just a local HTML. They can just save that URL, and then by putting it back into their desktop, it will into their web browser, it will bring the page up because it's just saved locally. So it's done really, really well there. Okay, so we've basically created our quiz, and it's working well. Again, one example, you can do so many things with this idea of sticking the quiz the page content in a hash. I'm sure your brain is whirring there, all of the things that you could potentially do, but it's still local, and we need to commit it online so that students can actually, view the page. So if we just go back in here, look, we're going to go to GitHub. Okay, so we're going to go to GitHub, so github.com, which is, remember, where I shared the instructions and the ideas and details for you. But we're going to create a new repository or repo. So again, make sure you've signed in. You must do it this way around. Make sure you do GitHub before what I'm about to show you. You need to have signed into GitHub first, just with a Google address or email and password. Hit new. Give your repository a name. So I'm going to call mine quiz quest. There we go. Whatever. And I'm going to make it private, because I don't want the code itself to be visible to other people. I'm going to share a page with my students, but the code itself I'm going to keep private. All the rest you can keep as the defaults. Create repository. Now, that's it. So all you do is this. Copy this. This is your repo URL. Copy that. Go back into OpenCode. Now commit this code base to this GitHub repo. Now you may, if you do this, you may well have to do 2 or 3 steps before. It may ask you to make a link, and you'll just have to follow your nose. I won't do it in this course, because actually I learned through asking AI. If you do this and it says there's an error, paste the error back into AI and it will actually talk you through, because essentially you need to kind of link your device to GitHub. Now, in my longer courses, I do explain this, but just in this free one, it's something that you'll need to work out. It's not hugely difficult, and as I said, AI can talk you through it. But obviously, I've made the link. I'm doing this all the time, so it will work. But if it doesn't, if it says there's an error, paste the error back in and just go step by step to make the link between your device and GitHub. So there you go. See, can you see what it says Git is initialized? That's because I've made the link. If you've never done this before, it will almost certainly say, Git is not initialized. And then you'll need to go through the steps with GLM's help. Always just ask. This great thing about working with AI tools, if you're not sure, just ask, how do I do this? Take me step by step. I've never done this before. Take me step by step and it will. Okay, so it's pushed it. So if I just go back in, okay, just hit refresh, you'll see the code appears here. There you go. So there's the code. So, but this just stores the code. It doesn't deploy. You can't view a web page with it on. So you now have to do, there's a couple of things that you need to do. The first thing you'll need to do, you need to go to Versal, versal.com, okay, versal.com. And you need to sign in with your GitHub credentials. Okay, so when you go to sign in here, look, just log out here. Okay, when you log in, sign up like this. Okay, you can just choose one of these. Sign up with, I'm going to say personal projects, Darren, obviously I won't do it again because I've already done it. Hit continue with GitHub, because that will link your GitHub and Versal accounts together. Okay, makes sense. So I'll just quickly sign in. Okay, so what you do now is this. You won't see any of this stuff. If you ever see this, don't ignore it. Okay, like I've done today. It's one of my jobs to do. This means that there's a security issue on one of your projects. You need to sort it out. So just make sure you don't ignore that. Okay, you won't see any of this because these are my projects. Hit add new project. And what you'll see initially is a little black button here, which is just to link your GitHub, and just click on that and make the connection with GitHub. But you can see there, look, there, and then you'll see this. You'll see it there, look, QuizQuest. Hit import. Now, I've got an environment variable I need to add. Remember that we have our open router API key. You need to add it in here. So add it now. Can you see where it says environment variables? Tap on that. Now, this is what you do. Go back into your file browser. And remember, you may need to shift command full stop to show your file. Just open up your end local. Text edit. And you just do this, look. Just grab it. Grab the whole thing, including so literally just grab everything like this, look. And then you just paste it like this. And what it will do is it will actually automatically link, add it in without the inverted commas. It basically populates both fields, and then hit deploy. And there we go. It has deployed. Continue to dashboard. That is your URL that you can share with your students. Now, there are ways in which you can add your own domain here. Again, I show you that in the longer course. Just buy a domain on a domain name service provider. I use Namecheap, and it's quite easy to set up. So you can change that to your own website. But for now, look, we just have open here, look, create the quiz, put in our API key, and then we can share. So there's one last thing I want to do. Before we share this project, I want to check to ensure that the teacher side API key is fully protected. If not, I want to move it to Versal environment variables. Okay, so I'm just saying, look, just double check. This is not something I've done before. Okay, had it on the teacher side. And so I just want to double check to make sure that we're not actually committing it into our code base for anyone to be able to access. So important. So it's just doing this last double check. And if it does, then I'm going to move it into Versal environment variables, which we've already set. We've already set the API key, and it can just use the same API key. Okay, so it's done lots and lots of thinking. So we're well protected. Okay, so bring your own key. It's done local storage, browser only. Client-side fetches directly to OpenRouter, never hits the server, key never transfers. Okay, that's fine. So there we go. So we now have a fully working quiz generator. You can trick it out. You could say, well, actually, I want an input box where I paste in text and it generates the quiz from the text. You get the idea. You can just play around with this. But we finished. So we created a simple quiz generator which stores all of the information in the URL as a hash and enables you to actually share and students to complete and save it, all without needing a backend. Super cool.